Welcome back. I'm Kalani Das. This is World Drum Club, and this is another installment in this 8-part series on facilitation. And I'm basing this on a piece that I developed for developmental community music facilitation courses called the Facilitator Qualities Matrix. This is the quality of the observer. And this relates to the quality of storyteller. I'll talk about that one in the storyteller video, of course. A lot of the other qualities, leader, follower, teacher, student, etc., I have separate videos on. But this is about a super important quality that is often, I think, bypassed or overlooked or undervalued. And that is the quality of the observer. Now, when I say the observer, I don't mean just with your eyes, right? Especially in a music experience, we're at least using our eyes and our ears. Hopefully not our noses too much, and our sense of taste. But you never know. Well, what I mean by observer is obviously paying attention. That's the main thing. If we're going to sum it up, in 2 words, it would be paying attention. Watching what's happening, but not just, on one level. So listening to the music. What's the music sound like? What's happening with the music? Is it speeding up? Is it slowing down? Is the energy rising? Is it dropping? Is it falling off? Is it what's happening? Is it chaotic? Is it harmonious? What does it need? Right? So the way we get to how can I help this situation is what is this situation? And if we don't stop and observe, we can't really gather, we can't get to the point of here's the situation. Because maybe we've already been planning and we've been thinking ahead, and now we're ready to do something based on what was happening, and we're not paying attention to what is happening. So too much planning, not good. Sometimes you have to just be. So I'm going to relate this to some language maybe you've heard in the practice or teachings of mindfulness, which is a word called beingness or presence. Observing. So that's super important. In addition to the obvious, the external evidence of what's happening, maybe you can get a glimpse of what might be happening inside people based on their body language, based on their affect, meaning their facial expressions, based on their gestures, how they're moving. Do they look stiff? Do they look lethargic? Are they distracted? Do they look elevated? What's the vibe, right? And of course, I'm talking about individuals and the collective, the mean of the collective of the individuals. So the whole group, the group as a whole, but also individuals. That's all information that you need to gather. And it's important. So all of those things, the sounds, the sights, and of course, when you're coming up with an idea that you're going to attach some labels to, right, for people, of course you're guessing. We don't know exactly what's happening with somebody just based on their body language or movements or affect, but we could take a guess, right? And that's all we're doing. We're not trying to say we know what somebody's feeling or thinking. But certainly there's some signs that we could read to help us, to help inform us. All right. So we're going to gather all that. How do we create the space to do that? Because that's the issue. It's not that we don't want to do that. It's just that there's an opportunity cost when we keep doing the other things like leading, teaching, talking, even modeling, even going out of our way to model something means we're just doing something. And when we're doing something active, producing something, it's a little bit harder. It's not impossible, but it takes energy away from the focus, and the energy that we can put into observing. So I would suggest that you find, especially if you're not used to doing this, I think the more experience you get, the more these become integrated, all these things like observing while you're teaching, right? That's a skill. But at first, you may need to separate them. You may need to say, okay, now everything's going. I've taught people what I need to teach them. I've demonstrated some things. I've led them into an experience. I'm monitoring. People are safe. Okay, Now, I'm going to stop and just observe. So I'm not going to be doing anything while I'm observing. You might need to do that because as you do things, it pushes out the space that you were leaving for observing, right? Does that make sense? As you get more experienced, of course, you'll be able to do both, hopefully together. And all of these qualities I'm talking about, all 8 of these, can be done simultaneously because they are a constellation. They're not separate things that you have to, they're in like these buckets and you got to jump out of one bucket into the next bucket in order to do that. That's not the way it is. It's like, everything that we do. It's like having a conversation. You're speaking, listening, thinking ahead, maybe thinking back, all at the same time. But I would say just if you're not a super experienced, that you carve out a little time, set aside some time to be an observer. And this goes for your life as well. I mean, if you're not experienced in mindfulness practices in any way, or maybe you like the word meditation, you could practice that a little bit. So the observer role, super important, but you may need to, even if it's a matter of managing your own time, like just doing it by the clock even. I don't recommend that so much because you want to be responsive to what's happening in the moment. So you can't just be like, nope, I'm observing, I'm not going to help you. You can't be like that. But maybe just saying, well, I want to spend at least 3 out of every 15 minutes in pure observation, or maybe 5 out of every 15 minutes in observation mode. Or I'm going to observe 30 seconds every 5 minutes. And just make sure you're doing that. Look, listen, check it out. Check in on people and gather information. The observer role is about gathering as much information as you can so you can make good choices about how you engage in the other roles like teacher and guardian and all these other things. All right, I hope this all makes sense. If you'd like to contribute, please do. We have a comment area below which you can use for your kind and helpful comments. And no other kinds of comments. Use it to the best of your ability, and see if you could be helpful. We appreciate that. If you'd like to do more, connect with me more, go to patreon.com/Kalani. Definitely watch the other 7 videos in this series. The other one that's a partner to this one is the storyteller one, all right? So you can check that out or watch all of them. They're all helpful, hopefully. All right, thanks everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kalani. This is World Drum Club. I'll see you soon.